Well, hello, hello, hello. Welcome back. Welcome back. I made it just by the skin of my teeth, just by the hair on my chinny chin chin. So we're back again. We're going to just finish off the end of day 3's live stream for Katrina Mendoza's testimony, because it was so long yesterday. We didn't get through it all, but we'll finish that off today, and then we'll move on to day 4 of the trial, which has the Chief Medical Examiner testifying, which can be triggering. So there is a graphic content warning, viewer discretion advised. I am Jody. I am here from the Defence Rests. So we're covering this trial. It's called the Jose Ruiz trial. And it involves, unfortunately, a 5-year-old girl. So we always need to remember the victims. So I'll play her little tribute to you now before we get started. Okay, so that was little Mercedes Victoria Lasoya, and the man charged with 8 counts of injury to a child under the age of 14 is currently on trial, and it was the ex-boyfriend of Katrina Mendoza, who is Mercedez Mother, who is testifying at the moment. So we shall continue on with her testimony.
So, time out. She would use her hands, she moved them around, she tried to grab at things. What else did she do that was so bad?
Let me adjust the volume a bit.
She didn't really do much bad.
Then why was she beaten so much?
Jose didn't like a lot of things that she did.
I didn't say what Jose did. I said, why was she beaten so much? You testified that you beat her with the belt. Why?
I didn't say I beat her with the belt.
Never said that?
No, I said I whooped her with the belt.
Maximum volume.
I spanked her with the belt.
You spanked her with the belt.
Yes.
Spanked, whipped.
No.
Either way, it shouldn't be done.
Okay, so how else was she bad? Mercedes.
Like I said, she wouldn't say her ABCs, or she didn't count numbers, or she.
She wouldn't say her ABCs. What was the context of that? Like, does she just automatically have to spurt them, or?
No, Jose would ask her to say her ABCs.
All right, stop. Everyone, it needs to be one person at a time. Otherwise, the court reporter is not going to take down the record.
This is an absolute shit show that the defense attorneys.
When you're talking about when she was bad, and you want to go to Jose right away, but why did you think she was bad about ABCs? How did that come up?
I didn't know that. I would get mad at her because she would lie, or she would talk back, or she wouldn't do exactly what I told her to do, or she would play with things in timeout, or watch TV while I told her not to. She would I had these like vitamin gummies, and like I fell asleep one time, and she wanted to open the vitamin gummies and eat them as candy, so she got in trouble for that.
Really? She got in trouble for eating your Vitagummies.
Destructive towards things? Did she break things and deliberately break things, or throw
No.
things, or?
No.
Did she steal from you?
No.
Was she violent toward you? Did she hit you, or?
Sometimes yes, sometimes she would kick me when I would spank her, or
Do you
she'll
blame her?
claw at me or do stuff like that.
She would claw at you.
Sometimes
Why would she kick you?
she would kick me because I would try to bend her over to spank her in her butt, and she didn't want to bend over, so she would kick.
To keep lying and delaying and being a complete clusterfuck. To keep lying and
Sorry, I had to put that in there. Let's continue.
and squirm.
Did you expect her to voluntarily?
Welcome to all
bend
those
over
people
when you
watching.
smacked
I
her?
can see 3 of you on there. Post a
Yes.
comment.
Why was that?
I mean, if I tell you you're gonna get a spanking, then you should be ready for a spanking.
You should be ready for it.
Yes.
You should be ready for a spanking. If you're going to get a
Yes.
spanking,
And she'd just bend over and let you
Yes.
without hesitation.
Yes.
And that was your definition of a good child, right?
That's good behavior.
If needed.
good
What
behavior.
other things did she
Stand
do
there and take it like a
specifically
5-year-old.
that got her in trouble? Mercedes, I'm talking about.
I think I already answered that question.
Bit of tood.
What else was
Bit of
there?
tood there.
Nothing else.
Nothing else.
Not that I can remember.
So the worst thing she ever did was not listen to you, talk back to you, not cooperate when you were trying to smack her or beat her. Yes?
Pretty much.
I never claimed to smack her or beat her.
You didn't. When you were trying to get her to turn over so you could, what to her?
Spank her butt.
Spank her butt. So when she wouldn't cooperate so that you could spank her butt, that was a bad act. Is that right?
Yes.
Have I covered all the bad acts that she's done?
She would lie.
What would she lie about?
Like for instance, there was this one time that they were on the balcony, and well, um, she was throwing the gummy bears off of the balcony, and I told her not to get near the balcony because you can fall and you can end up on the ground. And so when I asked her, I said, Mercedes, I saw you do this, and she said, no, I didn't do that, and I saw her do it. So she lied.
Let's beat her, shall
So
we?
that was considered a lie by you. And that was bad behavior, in your opinion?
Yes.
What did you do to her when she lied about throwing gummy bears up the balcony?
Put her in timeout.
And where was the timeout? Was it in the closet this time?
No, it was in the room.
In the room? Which room?
In me and Jose's room.
You're in Jose's room. Where was this?
In Henry B. Apartments.
And what floor were you on?
The second floor?
What kind of a fence was around the balcony?
I don't remember.
And you considered it to be you and Jose's room, but you didn't live there. You were just staying there, right?
No, I moved in for 3 weeks.
You moved in for 3 weeks. When was this?
When was what?
When did you move in for 3 weeks?
Sometime in January.
In February of what year?
January 2022.
January of 2022 is when you moved in. You hadn't lived there before that?
I mean, I would stay the night, but we didn't live there. I didn't have none of my belongings there or anything like that.
Where were you living at that time?
At Homer's house.
At Homer's house, and that was where Angelica lived as well, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, so you were hardly at Jose's house at all prior?
No, we were there a lot.
You were there a lot. Did the kids go to school?
They were enrolled, but they didn't really go to school.
Why?
I don't know. I just liked having them with me.
You what?
I like to have them with me.
So you didn't send them to school?
Sometimes I did, but they had a hard time of getting dropped off, and I didn't like to see them cry.
You didn't like to see them cry, but you were okay with your boyfriend beating the shit out of them.
Why? Was that true?
Sorry, that just demands.
he should off you fuck.
There.
No, Jack's relevant. Relevant says where.
Thanks,
the kids went to
Nicholas.
school.
Sustained. Ask your next
Where
question.
did the kids go to school?
I forgot the name.
Where was it located?
You can't remember the name of the school because you never fucking
Near
took them.
Moorbach and 410.
Moorbach and 410. Didn't you live on the south side?
No,
Where did Homer live?
Moorbach and 410.
Moorbach and 410. And how long did they go to school? What grades were they in?
Jordan was in first grade and Mercedes was in kindergarten.
Kindergarten. At some school near 410 and Moorbach.
I think it was called Hatchet. I'm not sure.
Hatchet, right. Where was your pediatrician?
Overruled. Yes, you can answer.
Vivia Pediatrics in the South Side,
And next to what hospital was that?
Southwest General Hospital.
Southwest General. And that's where you took Mercedes the night she was dead, right?
No,
Was it?
no, it was the Baptist Hospital
Baptist Hospital where?
in the South
Uh,
Side.
The testimony of one of the San Antonio Police Department detectives said that it was the Southwest General Hospital that she took Mercedes to, which was a 25-minute drive away from her home. And they didn't call 911 either. So I don't know why she's saying Baptist Hospital, but I don't know why she did a lot of things. That's just me. Go away, spinny wheel.
Side.
Was it across from the pediatricians?
No,
Welcome to everyone watching. Thank you.
To a Baptist hospital?
Post a comment,
Only name of the Baptist
like and subscribe.
yes,
wasn't called Texas Vista?
I don't know, maybe,
Maybe.
but I know it was the Baptist Hospital.
Baptist Hospital. So, you lived with Homer, Angelica lived there too. The kids went to, you think, the Hatch School over by Marbach and 410, but they didn't go regularly.
Yeah, they didn't go regularly.
And whose responsibility was it for those children to go to school?
Mine.
Yes.
And why didn't you take them to school?
Object to ask and answer.
Because she's irresponsible.
Relevant.
Putting
Overruled.
that out there.
What was the question?
Why didn't you take them to school?
They didn't like to depart from me.
I'm sorry?
They didn't like to depart from me.
No, it would
But
upset
you're
them.
the parent. Didn't you feel it was your responsibility to take them to school?
Yes, I mean, they went to daycare for a long time and they would go to daycare, but when they started school, they didn't really like to go to school, so I would feel bad and I would keep them with me.
So she keeps her kids home from school because she doesn't want to upset them. Yet she hides from police when they knock at the door because neighbours have called 911 to report children screaming and being beaten. Okay, what the fuck?
If they didn't want to go, you would feel bad and they didn't go to school. Is that correct?
Yes,
Do you think that's appropriate?
no, I should have made better choices.
I'm sorry?
Correct.
No, I should have made better choices.
Yes.
Oh, excuse me.
Did they stop going to, when did they stop going to school?
I can't say.
When you were staying with Jose at the Henry V apartments, did they go to school then?
No,
What did the children do all day?
well, they did go to school. Like, it's not like they never went to school because even when I had the CPS case, they told me that the school had made a complaint that they smelled like cigarettes. So they did go to school. It's just some days they just wouldn't go to school. They would stay with me.
Cigarettes is interesting. Did you smoke?
No,
Why did they smell cigarettes?
I don't know. I didn't think they did because I don't smoke cigarettes.
Is it true that Mercedes had asthma?
Yes,
And did you prevent her from being around cigarette smoke?
nobody smoked in the house, so I don't know why they made that allegation.
What other complaints, if any, did the school make about you?
That's it. That's all the CPS told me.
Is that why you really stopped taking her to school, because of complaints?
No,
If we were to contact the school, what would they tell us?
Objection, hearsay, and speculation.
Sustained.
So nobody in the house at Homer smoked.
no,
When you were at various other places, how many other places besides Jose's did you stay at?
that's it.
Didn't you have another boyfriend that you stayed at in December of
Oh, yeah.
2021?
Yes,
What was his name?
his name was Damon Gonzalez.
David Rosales. And did the children stay with you then when you were at his house?
Yes,
And who did he live with?
He lives with his grandmother.
Did she have complaints about you too?
No.
She was happy that you were there?
Yes.
Did they smoke?
Damon smoked.
So maybe that was his smoke that was, the school was complaining about with the children?
Object to relevance.
Overruled.
I answered.
Yes, you can answer.
Yes, maybe. But he didn't smoke cigarettes. He smoked weed,
Oh, he smoked
Oh.
weed.
and he wouldn't do it around the girls.
So when the school complained about smoke, they weren't necessarily speaking about cigarette smoke.
No, they said cigarette smoke.
Cigarette smoke? And you have no idea who smoked cigarettes around them.
I don't know why they would say that.
Well, they did though, apparently. You said.
Yes, but I don't know why they said that.
Well, if they were with you all the time and the school complained about smoke, where was the smoke coming from?
I'm gonna object to ask and answer.
That'll be overruled. If you know the answer, you can answer.
I don't
Why
know.
are you concentrating on that?
You had a pediatrician. What was the name of the pediatrician?
I think her name was Veronica Zamora or something like that.
And did you miss appointments with Miss Veronica?
No,
Dr. Veronica?
No.
Never missed appointments?
no.
If we had medical records from your pediatrician, 78 pages, and it says that you missed 8, 12 appointments, the records would be wrong. Is that right?
Most likely, yes.
I'm sorry?
Most likely, yes.
Their records are wrong. Correct.
Mhm.
What treatment was given to your children by the pediatrician?
What do you mean?
What treatment did you give them for what?
They would only go for like their yearly checkups.
Was Mercedes diagnosed with asthma?
I've already
They
said
just
yes
go
to
for
that.
yearly checkups.
Wasn't there a treatment plan for asthma provided by the doctor's office?
No, they just her asthma didn't act up all the time, so they just said that she would have an asthma pump. She didn't really use it.
Did you have one for her?
Yes,
Where did you get the asthma pump?
A
from
chemist?
the pharmacy.
Which pharmacy was that?
I
Oh my lord! Really?
Huh? How did you get it? If you don't remember.
There was a referral.
It was
You mean a
referral, but
prescription?
referral from the doctor to a pharmacy, and they provided an asthma inhaler,
Yes.
but you don't know where the pharmacy was.
No, I can't remember. It was a long time ago.
Why these
Did
people
you have more
focus
than
on the
one pharmacy?
insignificance?
I don't know.
It's beyond me.
You're saying there was no treatment plan for asthma for a child?
No, she didn't have asthma like that. She didn't act up. Her asthma didn't act up like that.
If we bring Dr. Zamora Campos, do you think she would say something different?
Objection calls for speculation.
Sustained.
What would she say?
Objection calls for speculation.
Speculation.
What
Say.
did she say?
Objection.
Oh,
calls for
same
hearsay.
question, worded differently.
Is it your testimony clearly that there was no treatment plan for your child's asthma?
Objection asked and answered.
That'll be overruled.
Yes.
When you said that there were times that Mercedes held her breath, could it have been related to her asthma?
Objection calls for speculation.
Sustained.
You're her mother. If she couldn't breathe, did you try to determine why?
I don't get that question.
I'm sorry, you don't get that question?
She would hold
You
her breath.
testified, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, that she would hold her breath
Yeah, she did that like 1 or 2 times
1 or 2 times. Why did she do it?
because
That's
she was
different to
mad.
having an
She was
asthma attack,
angry.
lady.
I'm sorry?
She was mad. She was angry.
Was it possible that she was not able to breathe because of her asthma?
No,
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 she was just angry.
yes.
What did she display about having asthma? What conduct did she display?
None really. Like I said, it didn't act up like that.
Her asthma didn't act up like that?
No,
Was she able to feed herself?
yes.
From what age, do you remember?
One.
From the age of 1. And, did you take her to the doctors for anything other than her yearly shots?
Yes, I believe so. I can't remember for what, but I know that we made appointments for different things.
What kind of things?
I can't really remember, to be honest.
How many children do you have?
2.
You can't remember what treatment they had for 1 or 2 children?
An object to argumentative and ask and answer.
Overruled.
Why don't you know when you had 2 children?
Because I'm sure it's been over 3 years that I took them to the doctor.
And you just don't remember.
Exactly.
Other than Damien, was there anybody else you lived with?
No.
And you worked.
Yes.
What did you do for a job?
I used to work at Cons Home Plus as a call center, and then I worked at Spectrum's call center, and then I danced at Diamond Show Club, Sugars, and Perfect 10.
Sugars. All right, when did you
Danced.
work? What was the time period that you worked?
Danced.
I believe when I was like 18 and 19, I worked at Cons
At
and
what?
at Cons,
What does that mean?
Cons Home Plus, the call center.
Home Burlington or?
Yes, the call center though.
It was a call center for a Burlington place.
Yes,
Okay, and that was when you were 18 or 19. What was that time? What years were they? I don't know how old you were.
2018, 2019.
Okay, and you had children at that time, is that right?
Yes.
And where were the children when you worked?
Daycare.
Daycare.
Daycare. Where was that daycare?
I can't remember.
Where was the place that you worked?
Near 410.
410 and what?
I don't know.
You don't know.
No.
And it was just con. Did you have a car?
Yes.
You were able to drive to work?
Yes.
Was it your car or someone else's?
It was my car.
Did you always have that car or just for a short period or what?
I believe I had a BMW for a little while. And
BMW?
yes,
What year?
a 2002.
In 2002. Oh, a 2002 model. Okay, thank you. All right. How did you get that? BMW.
Object to
Oh my lord, this woman's driving me crazy.
When you
Let
worked,
me
you were
see.
able to buy a car
An object to relevance.
at strip clubs.
No, after I worked at KFC, I started working at Laguna Madre
She's still
and
going on about this, she's employed.
McDonald's.
Three times? And did they make reports or come in or examine the children or anything?
No,
Did you talk to them or did Jose talk with them?
both of us.
Why were they there?
They had a complaint of noise
Police.
or something like that.
Neighbours had made multiple 911 calls and complained about the noise and the child screaming.
Overruled. You can answer if you know.
No, I don't know.
I'm sorry, you're saying then the police only came because of noise complaints, is that right?
That's what they told me.
And they're always in the daytime?
This was, no, one time they came at night.
Did they come in the apartment?
No,
What What was the reason for coming?
I don't know, we didn't answer the door
Why didn't you answer the door for police?
because Mercedes had bruises and I was scared.
Because why?
Mercedes had bruises and I was scared.
That's probably why she
What were
didn't
you
take them to
scared of?
school either.
I was scared
Truth
of
be
Jose.
told.
Jose, why didn't you leave?
Yeah, good question.
He had said that if we opened the door that he was gonna shoot the gun inside the house.
He was gonna shoot the gun inside the house.
Yes,
When Jordan said she never saw a gun, was she lying on that one too?
yes.
If he was gonna shoot the gun, why did you stay the next day? Why weren't you?
Hello, Nong. Thank you for the
I
like.
had nowhere to go.
There are shelters you can go to if somebody's gonna shoot a gun. What about the safety of your children?
I don't know.
When Mercedes died, why were you feeding her that day?
I didn't feed her. I gave her food, but she fed herself.
She fed herself animal crackers,
No.
ramen noodles, bananas, what else?
Ramen noodles, bananas, and Danimals.
Animal cookies,
No, Danimals. Danimals yogurt.
animals yogurt, okay. Wasn't that an awful lot? Does she always eat that much?
I mean, she didn't eat it all, but she was picking whatever she wanted to eat.
Jordan also said that when she couldn't get any more breath, and although you tried to give her breath, that you then went to Jose's apartment.
Yes,
Was she
because
lying about that?
no, I mean, I didn't try to give her breath. She didn't run out of breath, but we did go to Jose's apartment after that.
But Jordan is definitely lying about the breath business.
Yes, she was still breathing.
She was still breathing. Okay, so you went to Jose's. He didn't come to your place first.
No,
right?
he did. He came to Jeanette's house, and then Jeanette got there, and we took Mercedes to to Jose's new apartment
Jose's new apartment. Why did you go there?
because Jeanette and her sons got there, and I didn't want anybody to get scared about what was going on.
What was going on?
Mercedes was throwing up, and she looked very ill, and she had two little boys, so I didn't want them to like get scared or anything like that. So we took her to Jose's apartment.
Why didn't you take her to the hospital when she was behaving like that?
I was scared that my kids were gonna get taken away.
Weren't you concerned about her care?
I
Not
didn't
what
think
happened to you, but her care?
I didn't think she was dying. I just thought that she ate too much or she just had an upset stomach.
So you saw the vomit, we saw pictures of vomiting. Where was she when she vomited at Jose's?
At Jose's
When she was at Jose's, where did she vomit?
on the bed,
On the bed. Okay, where else?
on the floor.
She was a pretty skinny little kid. Did she usually eat that much on her own?
She lost a lot of weight within those 3 weeks. She was really chubby.
She was chubby.
Mhm.
How much did she weigh at her chubbiest?
I don't know.
You don't know how much your child weighed?
That's what I said.
Copping some tood.
Why did you go to the hospital on the south side?
Because I needed my dad to be there with me, and I wasn't thinking. I was just acting in impulse.
You needed your dad to be with you, but your child was dying.
I didn't know she was dying.
You didn't know. There are hospitals so much closer to Huebner than all the way on the south side. There's the medical center on the way. There's a Santa Rosa, the place is downtown. all these hospitals you passed, that, Ms. Giovanco showed you the number of places in between, and you had to go all the way to the south side. Now, you say when you were holding, Mercedes in your lap on the way down in the car, you weren't sure if she was breathing or not?
Yeah, I wasn't sure if she was breathing or not.
But you still drove 25 minutes away.
Breathing or not.
I put my finger to her neck or felt her nose to see if she was breathing through her nose.
Where on her neck did you put your fingers?
Right here.
Okay, and then you checked her nose. How did you do that? With your hand or
I
your
did.
face?
I just put my hand like that to her nose to see if she was breathing through her nose.
And was any breath coming out of her?
Yes,
Yes?
yes. At first there was.
First there was. And when you took her into the hospital, was any breath coming out of her?
No.
What did you say when you got into the hospital?
I said, somebody help me, my baby's not breathing.
She was cold at that point, wasn't she?
No,
The
She
hospital
was.
workers report said that she was cold. Are they lying?
I'm not sure. I wasn't thinking. I was just holding her.
Was your father there when you got there?
Yes,
When did you call him?
on the way to the hospital.
On the way?
Yes.
You didn't call him beforehand from Jose's apartment?
No,
Why not?
I don't know.
I don't know why you didn't call your father?
Yeah.
But you were going there specifically to see your father. That's what
No,
you said. Or no, was I wrong on that?
no, you're wrong.
Okay, I'm wrong. So do you mind clarifying it then?
I wanted my dad to be there so that way he can take Jordan, and I wanted to get to the hospital that she had been frequently visited before. I thought that was the smartest idea.
My understanding, I thought you said that it was just you and Jose and Mercedes in the car on the way to the hospital.
No, I said it was me, Jose, and Mercedes in the car when we were going to the hospital.
Yes. So why did you say Jordan was with you on the way?
I didn't say that.
Clarify it, I'm clearly wrong.
Jordan was with Jeanette.
And where was that?
They were supposed to be following us to the hospital, so she was in a different car.
She was in a different car following you.
Mhm.
Right. And you wanted your father there to get Jordan,
Yes,
yes? And you called him, and whose phone did you use?
Jose's.
Because you didn't have a phone?
Exactly.
When you were making phone calls to Jose up at the apartments, what phone were you using?
I used the Text Now app on the computer.
Text or the computer? What kind of a computer?
I don't know, it was Jeanette's.
Was it an iPad? Was it a laptop? Was it a?
It was a laptop.
It was a laptop. Where was it?
Object to relevant.
Sustained.
You texted from the computer. Did you use the computer regularly?
Object to relevant.
Sustained.
You didn't have a phone at Jose's apartment when you went there, is that correct?
That's correct.
So riding in the car, at what point did you call your father to be sure that he would be there?
When we were on the way.
All right,
But
just
he was
one-
there ahead of you.
Sorry, just one moment, please. Dinah, you need to go message. All right, you may continue.
Your father was at the hospital ahead of you. How far away did he live from the hospital?
Like 7 minutes.
7 minutes? It's amazing how accurate you are on that. Why are you accurate on 7 minutes?
I'm gonna object to sidebar comment relevant.
Sustained.
How did you know how far it was from where Homer was to the hospital?
I'm gonna object to relevant.
I'm not
Sustained.
talking about Homer.
Excuse me.
Who's-
Once an objection is raised, You need to stop speaking,
Yes.
and I'll make a ruling. And if you don't know whether or not you should answer, you just ask me. The objection is sustained. Ask your next question.
When you met the father at the hospital, I thought it was Homer. Was it your biological father?
Yes.
And what was his name?
Rodolfo.
Rodolfo. But Rodolfo was at the hospital when you got there.
He was pulling up when we were pulling up.
Let's point out. Okay, and didn't you tell Jose not to go in because your father didn't like him?
No, I didn't say that.
You didn't say that.
No.
When you were in the hospital, you called Jose on the phone.
No, he called his phone.
He used his phone. So what phone did you use?
He had two or three phones, so I had one of them.
You had one of them. And you did or didn't talk to Jose when you were in the hospital?
No, I did. He called like 3 times.
Called you 3 times. And did you answer all 3 times?
Yes.
And what did you say to him?
No object, call for your side.
Overruled.
He was just asking about the phone and if I was okay and that he was gonna be outside and that he had Jordan or that he was gonna get Jordan, something like that.
Were you fighting with him?
No, I just told him like I did cuss, but I wasn't like fighting with him. I just said, my daughter just fucking died. What the fuck is your problem? Worried about a phone? I'm not worried about the phone right now.
Detective Cato, do you remember talking with him?
No, not that name doesn't ring a bell.
Remember talking to anybody at the hospital?
Yes,
Policeman.
yes.
If a policeman said that you were fighting on the phone with somebody at the hospital, would that policeman be lying?
Like I said, I was cussing and I was being loud, but I mean, I wasn't fighting. I was just hysterical because I just lost my daughter.
And that was, you were using one of Jose's phones,
Yes,
and you're saying you had 2 or 3.
yes.
So when you were at the hospital, you did talk to more than one police officer?
Yes.
And were they people in uniform or were they people in plain clothes?
2 were in uniform and then the detective came in plain clothes.
Do you remember any of their names, the detectives?
No.
Do you remember giving different statements, different descriptions of the facts to different officers?
I can't remember.
But you can remember 7 minutes from one place to the next.
I'm gonna object, argumentative.
Sustained.
Agreed, excuse me, sorry, I withdraw that. Now, you have, when you got out that night from the hospital after Mercedes died, what did you do?
No object, irrelevant.
Overruled.
Were you taken to the police station?
Yes.
By whom?
By the detective, I believe.
And you don't know which one?
No.
Were you in a plane car? Or a marked police car?
No object, irrelevant.
Overruled.
I can't remember. I think it was a police car
Where did you sit?
in the back.
Were you in handcuffs or anything?
No.
Were you under arrest?
No.
So when you got to the police station, what happened?
I gave them a statement.
You gave a statement.
Yes,
Was it a written statement or a verbal statement?
a verbal statement.
Verbal statement. Did anybody give you your rights not to talk or to have a lawyer? Did anybody tell you that?
No.
What did you do after you gave the statement?
They dropped me off at my dad's house.
Which dad are we talking about here?
My biological father.
Biological father. Okay, and you went to the police station another time.
Yes.
When?
I think it was February 11th.
Did you leave the police station that night?
No.
You stayed there all night?
Oh, well, they arrested me that night.
They did arrest you the same night?
February 11th.
February 11th. And that was a nighttime appointment that you had with police?
I can't remember.
Can't remember? I'm sorry, did you say you can't remember?
I said I can't remember.
You gave a different story on February 11th than you did the first night. Do you remember that?
No.
Do you remember what you said?
Somewhat, yeah.
I'm sorry?
Somewhat.
What did you say?
I'm gonna object to call for hearsay.
That'll be overruled.
I'm also gonna object to vague.
That'll be overruled.
What did you say when you spoke to the police officers?
I told them that, I started from the beginning. I told them that, I told them how Mercedes went with Jose, and
Oh, I'm sorry, what did you say?
I told them how Mercedes went with Jose for that one day, and I told them how she spent the night at his house. I told them that the next day me and my godfather got into an argument, and I left and I went with Jose. And that day, that's when I found out that Jose had pinched Mercedes in her inner thighs. And I told them that Jose was beating on Mercedes and pulling her hair.
Sustained.
When you were there on February 11th, why were you talking about Jose? Why weren't you talking about how Mercedes died?
Because that's how she died. Jose beat her to death.
Jose beat her to death. When? When did he beat her to death?
Those 2 or 3 weeks that we were living with him.
A week from what day?
What?
What day? A week from when did he beat her to death? She died February 7th.
So 3 weeks before that.
3 weeks before that, he beat her to death.
The abuse piled up and she ended up dying because he was beating on her.
When did she die?
February 7th.
But he beat her to death 3 weeks before that. Is that right?
What I'm saying is what he was doing to her caused her death.
Who told you that?
I did.
You did.
And yet you did nothing about it.
I don't know, because I was in love with him.
In love with somebody who was hurting your children?
Yes.
It's really all about you, isn't it?
No.
When did you
Hello and welcome to everyone who's just joined watching.
The day that I left his house,
What day was that?
I don't know.
Do you remember writing jail letters and writing to somebody, I don't know who, the state provides this to us, but in that letter,
I'm gonna object to hearsay and relevance.
All right, the objection to relevance will be sustained.
you had said as I recall, correct me if I'm wrong, because I can be wrong. You said, as I understood it, that Jose hadn't seen the children for a full 2 days before she died. Was that my mistake?
No, that's correct.
That's correct. So you definitely didn't see them that day before, or the day before that. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So how did he beat her to death 3 weeks before?
She was already sick.
She was what?
She was already sick. She was feeling weak.
When was she feeling weak?
I would say a week after we had moved in with him.
A week after what?
We moved in with him.
And
So sometime in January.
then you let him do it for another 2 more weeks, allegedly.
Because that was the place to go. He was my boyfriend and I trusted him. Because I loved him.
All these bad things you're saying about Jose, isn't it because that's to help you get probation?
No, that's not true. I don't expect probation. It's
No, but you applied for it.
yes, I know, but I don't expect it.
Why did you apply for it?
Because I would want probation, but I don't expect probation.
Why don't you expect it?
Because it's reality. I know that I'm not innocent.
You're not innocent.
No.
True that. When you're ready, ladies. Convalescent counsel.
Do you remember making the plea bargain before the judge on August 7th of last year?
Yes.
What happened in that plea?
I signed an agreement for a cap with 45 with a possibility of probation and a testimony.
So that is the deal that she struck with the prosecution. So in exchange for her testimony today against the defendant, Jose Ruiz, her ex-boyfriend, the prosecution agreed to cap her sentence at 45 years instead of life, with the possibility of probation. So that was the deal that she made with prosecution.
If you give the testimony. And how many charges did you have before you made that plea?
6.
I'm not sure.
There were a lot of them, weren't there?
Sustained.
Did the state drop a number of charges against you? You make that plea bargain?
I think so, yes.
No, I'm trying to find the indictment, just a moment. What specifically did you plead guilty to?
Guilty by omission?
What does that mean?
I'm not sure.
You pled that you did something wrong, and as a result of that, you might be eligible for probation for a period of years maximum. What was the maximum period of years?
45.
45 years. And what did you say that you did to even have to look at 45 years in jail? What?
That I saw what was going on and I didn't report it.
That's all you did?
I think that's what my indictment looks like, yeah.
I'm sorry, I really didn't understand what you said.
I said that's what my indictment says, I believe.
I want to know what.
If you want a full list of her charges, there are 6 of them. Go back to day 1 of the Ruiz trial that's in the playlist on this channel, and there's a full list of all of her charges on there.
You pled guilty to what you did wrong that you're looking at 45 years.
I'm gonna object to asking anything.
No, it's sustained.
Her testimony is nearly finished.
You know you're responsible for her death, don't you?
No,
Why?
because I didn't beat her.
You didn't beat her. But you're saying that Jose beat her to death 3 weeks earlier, and you continue to live with him, and you don't think you're responsible for her death?
I'm gonna object to automatically.
That'll be overruled. You can answer it.
Yeah,
Yes, what?
yes, I don't think that I'm responsible.
You don't
Here's the thing, asshole.
think you're responsible for her death?
I have fault, but I don't think that I killed her.
Why is that? You kept her with the man who beat her to death weeks before, but you didn't kill her?
I'm gonna object to automatically.
Is there any other objection?
Relevant.
Sustained.
You at least admit that you contributed to her death.
Yes,
Yes, witness.
Seeing as no further questions.
All right. The rule
All
has
right.
been invoked.
Skip ahead a little bit further. They have a bit of a break, so we'll go back to there. See what they've got to say.
Publish to the jury.
Yes.
Not much left of her testimony now. And then we move on to the medical examiner. So these people here are the defense attorneys. This is Jose Ruiz, the defendant, and these are the prosecution.
Call number 219786140. Inmate ID 216410. Date 2022 28. Time 102645. Dial number 1217609373 from station 28111. Press 1 for English. Katrina Mendoza. Please enter your PIN number. To report any type of sexual abuse or sexual harassment for calls within the United States, Canada, and the Caribbean, please. Hello, you have a free call from a resident. This call will be recorded and subject to monitoring at any time. Thank you for using IC Solutions. You may begin speaking.
Hey, but we're calling the lawyer, and I called my lawyer and now they can call me back. We're calling that phone right up. No, you did, right? You didn't cut 1%. What did it say was? Is they're gonna call us back as other sin? Correct? Nah, yeah, cause they gave you information, bro, and they're gonna call us back. We were calling everybody, bro. My nigga, the thing is, if that autopsy comes back, nigga, I'm in jail. They can get you out of there. Alright, bro. Alright, bro. We getting our work. Alright, so we're calling lawyers, bro. Fuck a lawyer. Where's the lawyer not doing it? Nah, I'm gonna get you all fast as you go,
It's really hard to hear, but it was Jose
Mendoza, when
making a
you,
phone call from prison to his brother.
entered your guilty plea, the indictment against you, there was an indictment paragraph A that said on or about the 7th day of February 2022, Katrina Mendoza, hereinafter referred to as defendant, did intentionally and knowingly cause serious bodily injury to Mercedes Mother, a child who was 14 years of age or younger, by forcing a utensil into the mouth of Mercedes Mother and by manner and means unknown to the grand jury. Was that true?
I'm gonna object.
No,
to
she's just
asking
reading
answers
straight
because
from the
items have an evidence and relevance.
Oh,
Um,
you can answer
list
the
of
question.
charges. All right,
What was the question?
that's the end of her testimony. Anyway, so we shall move on to day 4. Now, day 4, it's still the state's case or the prosecution's case, and their witness today is Dr. Kimberly Molina. She is the Chief Medical Officer at the Bexar County Examiner's Office. She's a forensic pathologist with 20 years experience, and she testifies about reviewing the entire case. Now, her assistant chief medical officer was the doctor called Dr. Cannon, and he was the one that performed the autopsy. He testified via Zoom on day 2, if you want to go back and have a look at his testimony. So we shall pick up and resume with, let me share this. Hang on. Share screen. Righto. So day 4.
All right, everyone, please be seated. State, call your next witness.
Your Honor, the state calls Dr. Kimberly Molina.
All right, if you could raise your right hand, do you solemnly swear and affirm the testimony?
Again,
you give will be the truth,
graphic
the nothing but the truth,
content.
so help you God?
I do.
Viewer
All right, you can lower
discretion
your hand. Make sure you keep your
advised.
voice up so that members of the jury and the court reporter can hear. And if you'll state your name for the record.
Dr. Kimberly Molina, Molina.
State.
Dr. Molina, Howard.
Yes.
Your Honor, this is the witness for the 705 hearing. We need to have it outside the presence of the jury.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury.
We got it.
Thank you.
All right,
Remember my
the jury.
previous instructions, all right?
Right. So they obviously want to have a discussion outside the presence of the jury. So let's skip.
Somewhere.
All right, if you have.
AMF magnetics have a magnetic hook range.
Need to
They
get
can hold from 5 kilos to 1.
I was the Deputy Chief Medical Examiner at the Bexar County Medical Examiner's Office. Before that, I was a Deputy Medical Examiner, and before that, I was the Assistant Medical Examiner. So I've been with the office over 20 years.
And when you stated where you went to school, can you tell me the years that you got each different certification? Do you remember?
I graduated from college in 1994. I graduated from medical school in 1998. I received my board certification in anatomic and clinical pathology in 2004. My board certification in forensic pathology in 2005. I started with the office in 2003. I became Deputy Chief Medical Examiner in 2007, and then Chief Medical Examiner in 2020.
And to be a deputy medical examiner, for instance, what are the, besides the degrees, you mentioned a residency, what other requirements are there to get that kind of certification?
To be a deputy medical examiner in our office, you have to complete your residency training and the minimum of anatomic pathology and a fellowship, which is training after residency in forensic pathology.
And since being with the office, have you trained other people?
Yes.
In what capacity?
So I was the program director, which is the director of our fellowship program for a number of years, as well as being on staff. We train all of the fellows who come through our office. We also train medical students and residents who come through our office.
And over the years, can you approximate how many autopsies you have performed?
When I first started with the office, I believe there were 4 medical examiners, and we performed approximately 2,000 death investigations a year. Now we have 7 current medical examiners. We perform approximately 3,500 to 4,000 death investigations per year. We divide that up equally across the board. So if you do your math and divide out, that's how many examinations I've performed.
And other than performing, how many have you been supervising on?
Again, you would add a fellow in that math, and then I would perform my share of those. Again, all of the duties are equally distributed.
And when, in your current role, when a deputy medical examiner performs an autopsy, and on the report you see your signature attached, what does that signify?
So in our office, every autopsy that's performed is reviewed and co-signed by the chief medical examiner, signifying that the findings and conclusions are appropriate for that case.
And before you sign off saying that the findings and conclusions are appropriate, do you review the case at all?
It depends on the case, but at a minimum, I review the findings and conclusion.
What about in the case of Mercedez Mother?
In this particular case, I reviewed the entire case, yes.
I'm sorry, was that Ms. Thompson?
I reviewed the entire case.
Can you move closer to the microphone?
Are you ready to pass?
Yes.
All right, in defense?
You didn't do the autopsy, did you?
No,
I'm sorry, my name is Ruiz. You didn't do the autopsy.
correct.
Did you review the body?
I saw the body in the morgue, yes.
Did you review the body?
I don't know the extent of the question. I didn't
Everyone is
perform
so
the
patient
examination,
with
but I
the
saw the
defense
body
attorney.
in the morgue, yes.
She's got the patience of a saint.
To see the body, did you get involved? Did you just see it passing by on a table? What was the context of that?
Dr. Keenan called me down to see the body while he was performing the examination, and I reviewed the body during the examination.
How long were you there?
I don't recall.
Did you see the body while it was being opened and parts of it were being displayed, or did you just look at the body and saw it on the table? To what extent did you actually see the body?
Your Honor, I'm going to check this outside the scope of the
I'll allow it. If you can answer the question.
I believe that I saw the body before the examination began, before the body was open, and then I was called down again and saw the body when the body was open to look at some of the findings that were present.
So at all stages.
Specifically, I recall I was asked to look at the injuries on the feet.
And just the feet.
On the feet. I said that's what I recall.
That question is outside the scope of the civil notified hearing. Ask your next question, counsel.
What was your underlying scientific theory for what you saw? What was the basis of it?
At the time,
You don't have one.
At the time, I don't know. I had an underlying scientific theory. At the time that we perform an examination, we keep an open mind. We look at all of the facts in front of us. And at the time of the exam, that's only one piece of the information we need.
You only looked at the date of Mercedes.
No, I said I recalled being called for that reason. However, you asked when I was in the morgue, looking at the body. And again, that is part of what I recall. However, she was open at the time. I don't recall what else I saw.
Some of the questions that are involved in this kind of a hearing are the underlying, we have your qualifications, but the validity of the underlying scientific theory is by the expert. And we don't have a theory, is that correct?
You asked what theory I had at the time that I was in the morgue. At the time we're in the morgue, we're still examining. Our theories don't come into play until we have all pieces of the investigation, which includes all facets of the autopsy examination, which includes microscopy, toxicology, all testing that we do. You asked for my theory in the morgue. My theory in the morgue was simply to document injuries. The theories, again, come into play when we have all information available to us, which is sometime after the morgue.
Thank you. So you actually didn't develop a theory until after everything was completed.
That's gonna be overruled.
Again, we take all of the pieces, all of the information that we have, and at that point, we come up with our conclusions. So again, we have to take all of this information, and it's not necessarily in the morgue.
What was the total amount of information that you used to make the determination?
So in this particular case, it would have been the autopsy results, the results of the toxicology and chemical testing, the results of microscopy, the results of the radiology.
And I'm sorry, just 1 second. For the court reporter, microscopy. Could you spell that,
Microscopy,
please?
MICROSCOPY.
Thank you. All right, defense, you can continue.
You prepared a separate report in context with conversation with Attorney Mitchell, Attorney Giamacco, the chief examiner, Dr. Drawborn, DA victim advocate Marina Winter, and DA intern Tony Rojas. Is that when you actually presented your theory?
Recordings just got better. Hey, it's Dana from StreamYard. I'm so excited to announce that local.
That'll be overruled. You can answer.
I did not prepare a report in this case.
You didn't.
No.
In the report prepared by your office through Dr. King said you used police reports.
Hello.
And medical records, yes, medical records.
Hello.
Did you review those as well?
I apologize, I did not hear the question.
In Dr. King's
Hello.
final report,
Yeah.
he said
Hello.
that it was all compiled
Boy.
with the contribution of police reports, medical reports from the past of the victim, Dr. some more compost reports. Did you look at those as well?
So that information is outlined in our investigative report, which I did review our investigative report, but I did not recall reviewing the police report and the records other than reviewing our investigative report.
Your investigative reports included medical reports of the pediatrician, Dr. Moral Compass, and the police reports were also indicated in the report as part of the compilation. Did you review those?
So I don't recall reviewing the police reports or the medical reports myself, other than the summaries that exist in our investigative report.
Did you bring records today pursuant to the statement that we prepared? I know you're the state's witness right now, but we prepared the statement. Did you bring those records?
Your Honor, objection, the Duke's Tatum was months ago, she had an assistant bring the records.
All right, that objection, it's outside the scope. Unless you tie that into this hearing, that's outside the scope. So if you want to tie those records to this hearing and you're able to do that, then the court will hear your question. Ask your next question.
Did you review the records that were part of the Duke's Tatum at any time prior to you coming here?
The Duke's Tatum, as I understand it, was a request for any and all of our records as part of our file. I reviewed our entire file. I have our entire file with me today. So yes, I have reviewed the entire file with this case.
And in that, does it include the reports of Dr. Zamora Campos, pediatrician?
No,
It doesn't.
no.
Were you aware that the child, in viewing this record, you were aware that the child, were you aware that the child had asthma?
Yes,
And how did that figure into your medical report?
it did not. We ruled out asthma as the cause of death.
Dr. Kanan said in your.
Object to outside the scope, Your Honor. I hear so.
All right. With regards, just one second.
For those of you that have just joined in, welcome. Thank you. We are currently getting the testimony from the Chief Medical Examiner who reviewed the autopsy of the 5-year-old girl, Mercedes Victoria Lozoya. And this is her testimony, and her name is Dr. Kimberly Molina. And she's, again, the Chief Medical Officer at the Bexar County Examiner's Office with 20 years of experience in forensic psychology. Welcome.
With regards to hearsay, that will be overruled. With regards to outside the scope of this hearing, that will be sustained.
Isn't it true that in your report, you said asthma couldn't be excluded and asphyxia couldn't be excluded? Is that
Objection
correct?
outside the scope, Your Honor.
All right, that will be overruled.
The report says it couldn't exclude it. That's what I'm asking.
And, Your Honor, I would.
Just one moment. All right, off the record. Could everyone please review the purpose of a 705 hearing and what should be
God just gets
asked
pissed.
in a 705 hearing? If y'all need 5 minutes to do that, you can do that. But we're only here for her expertise, whether or not she had the underlying data, and whether or not she was able to come to whatever conclusion she can come to based upon the underlying data. We're just here to see if her expertise and the underlying data is present for the conclusions. We're not here for this to be I don't want to say dry run, but for this to be a full open cross-examination. So if everyone could please focus on this hearing and what the 705 hearing is about, that would be appreciated.
You
Sir,
tell him,
Your Honor,
Judge.
if I may, the underlying data is what I.
Ask the question, counsel. Just ask your question.
Yeah,
please.
do as you're told.
Underlying data from your report, from the medical examiner's report, included medical records from the pediatrician based on your report and police reports. That was your underlying data for this that you.
Why would she review records from her pediatrician
Objection, that's
during
a
an
statement,
autopsy?
and again, I think this is
overruled. Here's the thing. Just ask your questions
Is the
and the
thing.
court will make a ruling.
Here's the thing, asshole.
He says it better.
So ask your next question.
Yeah.
Your underlying data pursuant to this hearing included, based on the records, the reports of the pediatrician. Is that correct?
In a case such as this, underlying data would include past medical history, which is part of our investigative report, which I did review.
Yes. But
You can see she's getting really
you say
annoyed.
it excluded asphyxiation.
The
What
face.
excluded asphyxiation? The report, if you're referring to the findings, includes a statement about asphyxiation, correct, having nothing to do with asthma
Two different things.
or any underlying medical illnesses.
Thank you. Yes, witness.
All right. Do you have any
Look at the
objections
attitude.
to this witness defense?
Well, it said that she didn't perform the autopsy.
All
She
right,
only looked at the body and only examined the feet. So it's a matter of what she's able to testify to that she saw.
Are you for
That
real?
It's limited to her feet.
all right. That objection, that will be overruled.
You think?
At
Yeah.
the point in time
You
that's
should
appropriate if you
off
believe
you
there's
fuck.
something that she did not see or she did not view.
She testified that she only saw the feet.
My understanding
I believe
of her
the defense.
testimony is there was more than just her seeing the feet. Is that correct, doctor?
Correct.
All right, let's bring the jurors in.
Okay, so that was what's called a voir
Hi
dire.
everyone, it's Dr.
You
Izzy.
say it
I'm really
properly?
excited today to walk you through our clinic LE cell located at 70.
Voir dire, something like that. So basically, it was the defense asking questions to see what her answers would be outside the presence of the jury so that they knew what
State,
to
under this
expect
witness,
when the
is
jury
this
comes
your
back
last
in.
witness?
This is our last witness.
All right, so defense, this is going to be
So
your
if there's
last
anything
witness.
that
After this
repeats
witness
here,
testifies, I'll give you all a break to make
I
sure if
will.
you have witnesses you want to bring, you'll be able to do that.
And just so the court's aware,
25.
they wanted us to recall CPS investigator Dame.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
All right.
I've only got a
So I'll
minute.
give you all a short break, and then we'll proceed with your case if there are witnesses you wish to call. Well, my mom said it was thunderstorming, but she's like, it was great for her grass and her plants. So I'm like, all right, everyone, please be seated. You are still under oath. And if you could state your name again, just for the record.
Dr. Kimberly Molina.
State.
Good morning, Dr. Molina. How are you presently employed?
I am the chief medical examiner at the Bexar County Medical Examiner's Office.
And as the chief medical examiner, how many other deputy medical examiners do you supervise?
We are currently an office of 7, so I currently have 6 medical
We'll be
examiners
going over
who report to me.
what she's already said.
Versus areas of more, what we'll say, normal growth.
Wow. And also have a 5-year-old child of Mercedes height and weight, with her size arms, also hit with the same force and with the same size fist and leave a same size bruise. Does the surface area account for how much it would impact an adult with that injury versus a child.
So the surface area can play a role. Again, what we're looking at is, let's say 4 inches, right? 4 inches on an adult's arm may be just a portion of the arm, whereas 4 inches on a child's arm may be, say, half of the arm. So again, that would affect or potentially affect the use of that arm, or what could potentially be injured, just given it's a larger area percentage-wise on a child than on an adult.
Now, other than bruises and contusions and abrasions and lacerations, did you notice anything in reviewing her case regarding her mouth?
She had a healing injury on the inside of the lower lip and some absent teeth corresponding to that injury. So the kind of the front teeth of the lower gum line were what we call traumatically absent, meaning there were holes for teeth but no teeth.
What about her hair? Did you notice anything about her hair when she was first brought in?
Her hair was sparse and thinning in locations, so kind of areas of thinning versus areas of more, what we'll say, normal growth.
Now, okay. Now, you mentioned there was a laceration to the back of the head. Was as part of the autopsy, did Dr. Cannon in this case perform the autopsy, correct?
Correct. This autopsy was performed by Dr. Cannon, one of the deputy medical examiners in the office.
And what is the standard practice after a review of the external body? What is standard practice in an autopsy?
So in an autopsy, the autopsy after the external would be the internal, would be opening the body cavities and looking inside the body.
You mentioned the laceration to the head. Was there any internal injury in the head?
There was some bruising of the scalp. So underneath that laceration, there's some bruising of the scalp. But inside the head itself, so inside the skull, there were no significant brain injuries identified.
What about along her spine? Were there any injuries identified there?
So on the back of the spine, at about the level of the kind of fourth thoracic. So easiest way to do this is if you kind of feel the bony points on the back of your spine. If you feel the first one and you go down about 4, that bony point on the back of the vertebral body, there was a little fracture of that bony point.
And what is significant about that particular part of the spine that there's a fracture?
So that is called the spinous process. And that is where some of the ligaments that hold our back together insert. And so fractures such as this can certainly occur with blunt force injuries, like bruises and abrasions, meaning, with a force to that area. But it can also occur with sudden or kind of over what we call extension of the back, because those ligaments that are anchored on that bone can get pulled with such force that it breaks a little bit of the bone off.
And what typically causes that kind of injury?
That type of injury is most typically, it's not a common injury, but it's most typically seen with that kind of ligament pull. So when we have kind of over flexion, over extension of the back.
Okay, and can you, I don't know if you can demonstrate with your arm, what an overextension would be?
So it would be kind of leaning, like if you were suddenly to flex is to bend, to kind of flex down, right? That could potentially not just in doing this, but it would have to be a vigorous event.
I'm going to show you what's been admitted as Safety Exhibit 107. It has been identified as a photo of Mercedes Lozoya, and it has been identified that this is conduct where her arms had been bound up, and she is on the ground. Would a position like this be consistent with potentially causing that injury?
So I'm sorry, just to clarify, her arms are held in this position,
Her arms are held,
and is there a weight, or they're just held
they're just
by
held,
something
and it could
above the ground?
above the ground.
It's possible, yes.
Remember that time you pulled over because you couldn't see through the rain? Better blades would see you through, and the best ones are Wiper Tech.
Sorry.
Okay. Were there any other injuries that could be seen internally?
Just from the internal examination, nothing that we haven't described, meaning those same bruises that we discussed that we saw externally. When we look inside, we can see those as well, because they go into the tissues beneath the skin. But there were no additional injuries other than those that we've discussed.
Okay. Now, after the physical examination of the body, are there samples that are inspected from, or were there samples inspected from Mercedes?
Samples are taken at the time of autopsy for additional testing. We take blood, we take vitreous, which is the fluid behind the eye, and we can perform additional testing on that, like chemical testing, toxicology testing. Samples were also taken from the organs at the time of the autopsy to look at under the microscope so that we could see if there was any disease or trauma under the microscope.
And which organs were examined under the microscope?
We examine what we consider kind of the major organs, so heart, lungs, liver, spleen, thymus, adrenal glands, kidneys, also sections from the skin where the bruises and abrasions were.
Yeah, excuse me, could you spell thymus?
THYMUS.
Thank you.
Okay. Now, when, well, you said the lungs. Was there anything remarkable about the lungs when they were examined?
The lung showed some kind of scattered small areas of foreign material, consistent with what we call aspiration, without a lot of response. There was some early response to this. What that means is that easiest way to describe it, we've probably all done it, is you go to drink your coffee in the morning and it goes down the wrong pipe, right? So it goes in your airway instead of in your esophagus. You cough, you get that out, but some of it goes down into your lungs. If you were to die shortly thereafter, and we looked at lungs under the microscope, we might see that there was some material in the lungs that didn't belong there. Didn't cause the death, but we can still see that it's there, and we can see the body reacting to the fact that it's there. And we saw that in the lungs in this case.
Now, in Mercedes' case, you did review her medical history as part of this review. Is that correct?
Correct.
And in Mercedes' case, there were a lot of reports of vomiting. Is vomiting, would that be consistent with possibly aspiration at the time of vomiting?
But yes, I mean, that's a concern with vomiting, right? Is that as you vomit, you could potentially kind of inhale some of that into the lungs. It's certainly possible.
Now, as the body is dying, does that affect the ability for something to enter the lungs?
So yes, we tend to call this terminal aspiration, meaning in the dying process, we no longer have that protective mechanism that keeps our body from, say, swallowing food into the esophagus instead of into the lungs. So it's not uncommon for us to see, again, this aspiration, this foreign material kind of scattered in the lungs. Again, it's not something significant. It's something that we see, and it's not uncommon that we see it occurring right around the time as people are dying terminally.
And based on
The
what
reflex
was seen,
stops.
was the level of
So what she's explaining is that when you what's called aspirate, when fluid goes down into your lungs, we have a reflex that makes us cough. But terminal aspiration is when that reflex is lost because you're in the stages of or the process of dying, so that whatever would have caused you to cough to bring that foreign object from going out, not into your lungs, that doesn't happen. So you get what's called terminal aspiration, where contents, often saliva or vomit, goes into your lungs, only in a small amount, but it doesn't, it's not the cause of death, basically, is what she's explaining.
aspiration anything that would have contributed to that?
No.
It didn't contribute to her death.
Okay,
the point she's making.
Once the samples, fluid samples.
Hello, my darling.
You mentioned were sent for testing. Was there a review of her, I guess, her vitamins and all of the type of, when we go to the doctor, when we get, they take blood and they measure our glucose and all that kind of stuff. Were those kind of tests done?
So we performed a toxicology test, which is looking for any sorts of drugs or medications that are.
Just to say a quick hello to my darling eldest daughter, Jamison. Hello, baby. Thank you for watching. Love you. Mwah.
In the body at the time of death. And we look for everything from drinking alcohol to aspirin to prescription medications to illicit drugs. Additionally, we perform chemical testing looking at the electrolytes. So specifically like sodium, potassium, glucose. We do not necessarily look for things like vitamin levels or anemia.
The chief medical examiner.
They don't necessarily have a role to play in this death. And some tests simply cannot be done post-mortem. But we do the tests that we're able.
Oh, I just realized. First in chat, Jamison. Second in chat too. Love you too. You have just triggered the reel. Where is it? First in chat triggers the reel of redaction. Hey, let's do it, shall we? What word am I not allowed to say today? Ready. Okay. So the word of today, I'm not allowed to use the word attorney for the rest of the live stream. If you catch me saying that word, you need to type in attorney in all caps in the chat, and then I have to spin the wheel again and have another word. So let me just put that up. The word is, and not starting yet. The word is attorney. All right. So reel of redaction has been set. Let's keep going. Two that are applicable. go away. I really need to subscribe to premium. Now, take that off. And let's get back to the big screen.
Drugs or medications present. The
There we go.
electrolyte
All is
screening
good.
was within normal limits for post-mortem, meaning after death. Although the kidney function was one of our markers for kidney function, urea nitrogen, was elevated, telling us that there was an element of kidney failure at the time of death.
Now, were there any further tests done of the kidneys?
So as mentioned before, we did do microscopy, which is looking at the tissues under the microscope. So we looked at the kidneys as well as the other tissues under the microscope and did some additional, there was a finding found in those slides. And so we did an additional test where we stained the kidneys with it's called an immunoglobulin. It's a test to see if we can identify exactly what the substance is that was in the kidney. We were able to do that, and we found myoglobin in the kidneys.
And what is significant about finding myoglobin in the kidneys?
Myoglobin is a muscle protein that needs to stay in muscle. It's very toxic if released into the bloodstream, specifically toxic to the kidneys, where it can accumulate, meaning it sits in our kidneys and causes renal failure. So the finding of myoglobin in the kidneys, in these what we call casts in the kidneys, is one, it tells us that there's renal failure, which is consistent with the test we did to show there was renal failure. And two, it shows us that there was significant muscle damage, that this myoglobin was released and then accumulated in the kidneys.
And how, is there a word for that when you find myoglobin that has been released in the body? Is that a diagnosis?
Not myoglobin.
The term we use is
Other M
rhabdomyolysis.
word.
This basically means that the muscles are breaking down, releasing the myoglobin.
All right, could you spell that last word?
rhabdomyolysis.
Diana, you spell that correctly. You can ask your next question.
And can we refer to that as rhabdo for short?
Physicians usually call it rhabdo, yes.
And is rhabdo something that can happen to anyone?
Yes, it's been shown to occur with trauma being the main cause, but also with exertion. Military recruits the military is well aware of this because it can happen with muscular exertion, as well as with certain drug toxicities and other causes.
And you mentioned trauma. Is it your opinion that the bruising and injuries that Mercedes Lozoya sustained could have contributed to the trauma to the muscles, which contributed to the myoglobin kidney, otherwise rhabdo?
Yes, it is possible that the rhabdo resulted from the trauma that was present. Yes.
Okay. Now, you also mentioned exertion of the muscles. There has been testimony that, and video evidence actually, that Mercedes would be forced to hold heavy objects for hours at a time. Would that kind of muscle exertion damage the muscles and lead to rhabdo?
Yes.
So, could they independently cause rhabdo? The trauma, could that in and of itself lead to rhabdo?
Yes.
Could the muscle exertion in and of itself also lead to rhabdo?
Yes.
And having them together, does that increase the likelihood of rhabdo?
That's possible, yes.
Now, other than the rhabdo, what else could lead to kidney damage that might be due to the injuries that Mercedes sustained?
So, additionally, we have a significant amount of bruises or injuries to the body. And each of those bruises, right, would result in what we call cellular injury. And when our cells are injured, they tend to swell. The way I describe this is think about spraining your ankle. You go out, you sprain your ankle, and your ankle swells, right? When you have that isolated swelling, that fluid has to come from somewhere. And usually that comes from our bloodstream. And it's not a big deal, right? But imagine if you had multiple injuries all over your body. So you had lots of areas of swelling. This could potentially deplete some of the fluid that's in our bloodstream, meaning making it less. We call that hypovolemia. And that can also lead to kidney damage. It's like being dehydrated when you're not dehydrated, right? You're just pulling the fluids out into your tissues instead of having them in your bloodstream.
Can you explain to the jury what hyperkalemia is, and if that was something that was possible?
Hyperkalemia is when you have too much potassium in your blood. This can result from tissue injuries. Potassium is essential for us to have to survive, but it lives inside the cells. So when cells get injured and they release their contents into the bloodstream, they're releasing potassium into the bloodstream. And potassium is a very toxic electrolyte, must be kept in a very specific amount of range in our body. If we get too much, it leads to what we call cardiac arrhythmias, abnormal heartbeats, can lead to cardiac arrest. So too high can be lethal. So when we have a great deal of trauma, our potassium can get high as those cells die and release the potassium. So that could be from all of the different injuries that were present, but also in rhabdomyolysis. Remember, that is where the muscle cells are dying and are releasing their contents into the bloodstream. So along with that myoglobin we discussed, potassium is also released. So hyperkalemia, high potassium, is also associated with rhabdomyolysis.
Now, is rhabdomyolysis something that, if it were treated promptly, could be recovered from?
Yes.
If it is left untreated, does it pose a substantial risk of death?
Yes.
In the days leading up to Mercedes' death, there was testimony and evidence that she was fatigued, that she didn't want to eat, that she was vomiting. Are those symptoms of kidney or renal failure?
Yes.
I'll pass the witness, right? Defense.
Okay, cross-examination from the defense now.
Your witness, she's passed the witness.
Wait for it.
Could we have a little break right now?
For what purpose?
I'm sorry?
What purpose?
Just a break. My blood sugars are pretty low right now.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to give you all a 10-minute break. Remember my previous instructions.
All right, to the jury.
It's not actually a 10-minute break. It's about an hour and a half's break because the defense attorney gets taken away on a gurney for a hospital visit because her sugars were too low. So when we resume, she's okay. She comes back tomorrow's testimony, I think. But the other defense attorney takes over now, who is Lorraine Efron. So we shall go back to 2:34. Okay.
Have any objections to Ms. Ephron conducting the cross-examination of this witness? All right, and Ms. Ephron, do you have any objections to continuing without Ms. Conley's presence for the questioning of this witness?
No.
And Mr. Ruiz, do you have any objection to
We have about
continuing with
10
this
minutes
witness
left of
without the presence of Ms. Conley?
today's trial.
All right, let's bring the jurors in, if you'll let her know, please.
All right, for the jury.
All right, everyone, please be seated. So where we ended is state you had passed the witness, is that correct?
Yes.
All right, defense.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Collins not here, not proceeding without her, right? So, with regard to this examination, you can describe to the jury what you saw, correct?
Correct. What is documented in the examination?
Right.
Yes.
What you saw, what was documented. But you cannot tell this jury who caused a particular bruise, correct?
Correct.
And you cannot tell this jury who caused a particular injury, correct?
Correct.
And the I'm going to call it rhabdo. I could never pronounce that whole word. That is a progressive, it can be a progressive condition, correct?
Correct. It actually develops, again, you have your muscle injury, then those chemicals are released and you develop renal failure. So it's a full progression of rhabdomyolysis.
And it might not happen. Does it happen does that process begin at the time anybody has a severe muscle injury?
Well, the process begins when you have the muscle injury. But then again, whether or not you develop into renal failure, that depends on how much of a muscle injury you have, the ability of your body to clear it. But normally the whole rhabdomyolysis syndrome, so we're talking about the injury.
No, may I object to non-responsive?
All right, that will be sustained.
Thank you, Doctor. The rhabdo is, you wouldn't be able to give any kind of particular time frame as to how it develops, correct?
So as I was getting to, it usually takes 2 to 3 days to develop.
But one injury can add to a prior injury, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And with regard to who caused the death of Mercedes, you cannot say, can you?
Correct.
I can't say who,
Now,
say what and
you
how.
can say it's a homicide, correct?
Correct. It was determined to be a homicide.
But that's not a murder, is it?
Correct. As
You cannot tell this jury that the crime of murder has been committed, can you?
correct, I cannot.
That's for them to decide to agree with that, right?
Correct.
Okay, so can you,
Here's the thing, asshole.
You had a pre-trial motion. You weren't going to say the M word. Just saying.
describe to us what the homicide is and what the other categories that you make in an autopsy.
So again, we're referring to manner of death. And manner of death on a death certificate, these are epidemiologic terms. These are so people who study how and why we die and generate those graphs that you've probably seen why people are dying, right? It's so that public health can see why we're dying. For instance, you've probably seen things about the suicides going up. That's from death certificate data based on these manner of death determinations. So natural deaths being deaths due purely to natural disease processes. Accidental deaths being due to acts of nature, like hurricanes, tornadoes, floodings, or events with no intention for injury. So, for instance, car accidents, right? Suicides being a death where someone has caused injury to themselves. Homicides being where someone has caused injury to another. And undetermined being we don't have enough information to decide between the manners of death.
And so those are when you determine manner of death, those are the 5 categories that I guess the state of Texas has established for you.
Correct. Those are the manners of death that appear on the death certificate as defined by state law.
And you've never met Jose, correct?
Not that I know of, no.
And you've never met Katrina, the
Not-
co-defendant in this case.
Not that I know of, no.
What difference does that make? And you were obviously not present when any injury occurred.
Correct.
And it's a lot of information, but the information you're communicating is solely as a result of what you saw and what you reviewed for today, correct? That's her job.
Correct. It's part of our investigation into the death.
And did you review things before you testified today?
Yes.
Your autopsy notes and those kinds of things.
Correct. The entire file, which would be the autopsy report, the investigative report, the photographs, the radiographs or x-rays, the microscopy that we discussed, the slides under the microscope, all of that was reviewed.
Okay. And when you say a particular injury was the result of trauma, you can't say what particular kind of trauma it was, can you?
Other than blunt force trauma.
Other than blunt force.
Correct.
But blunt force trauma, would you agree, can occur in many ways. It's not necessarily from a physical act. It can happen if you forcefully bump into, crash blunt force trauma can happen in many ways.
Correct. It can happen in an infinite number of manners.
So it doesn't necessarily. She's trying to say that this child went around and bumped into every corner of the house and every chair and stubbed her toes and pulled her own toenails out and rolled around in the prickle bush or something. Because there was no other possible way that you could describe what a blunt force trauma was. Is that what you're saying? Is that what you're telling me?
He should off you fuck.
Pretty much, yep. Really mean that it came from, say, a strike or a blow by another individual.
Correct.
I pass the witness at this time.
State. Dr. Molina, was there anything in Mercedes' medical history that suggested that these injuries were all because of an accident?
No.
Was there anything in Mercedes' medical history that suggested that these were self-inflicted injuries?
No.
Can I have me approach? Yes. I'm going to show you what's been admitted has State's Exhibit number 97.
It depends if you need to move them out to see what's being shown. You may do so.
This is a photo that has been identified as a photo of Mercedes that was taken with Jose Ruiz's phone. In fact, by Jose Ruiz. And there has been evidence that this picture was taken at 4:44 p.m. And then there's additionally video evidence from basically from 6:30.
Your objective testimony from
Sustained. If a child is forced, this is Mercedes. Mercedes holding an item like this with their arms out like this from 4:45 p.m. till roughly 7 p.m. Would that be something that you would feel would contribute to the rhabdo?
Yes, that could certainly cause rhabdomyolysis.
Last witness. Any further questions, defense?
And again, that's because the rhabdo can be caused by contact injury or exertion, correct?
Correct. In this particular case, I'm being asked would be exertional. Yes.
And again, you're not here to make any legal conclusion, correct?
Correct.
I think that's what it's.
All right, is this witness excused or subject for recall?
Excuse me.
It's just subject to recall.
All right, the rule has been invoked. What that means is you can't discuss your testimony with anyone. You can't view anything. Only persons you're allowed to speak to are attorneys for the state or the defense. Thank you. Next step down.
All right. So that brings us to the end of day 4. That was the last of the state's witnesses. So the prosecution officially rests tomorrow morning, day 5, and the defense case in chief begins. So we have a couple, I think they have 3 or 4. I think they have 5 witnesses. They recall the CPS Special Investigations witness, Anthony Adame, and they recall Katrina Mendoza as well, the mother, so she retestifies. And there are a couple of, let's say, curious witnesses that are called or subpoenaed to the stand, and you'll understand more tomorrow when I do the recap. So I'll leave you in suspense for that, but it's definitely worth watching. It's the defense counsel. I don't understand how they got this job. They don't follow any court rules. They have no idea. I don't even think they watched any of the depositions of any of the witnesses. They had to voir dire a lot of the witnesses to see what they were going to testify about outside the presence of the jury before they could question them. So to say that tomorrow is a shit show is probably an under-exaggeration, but we shall find out tomorrow when I do the live stream. So a big thank you again to KSAT News and to Judge Boyd for your fantastic coverage of the live streaming of this case. And I look forward to seeing you all tomorrow again for another live stream, day 5 of the Jose Ruiz trial. And until then, I bid you adieu. Oh my God, I think I had that all on mute. Okay, so my bad. It's only my third live stream ever, okay? So forgive me. I shall say it again. So thank you again to KSAT News and Judge Boyd for the fantastic coverage of the case. Tomorrow, the defence case in chief starts, the state rests, and there are some peculiar witnesses called to the stand from the defence. So stay tuned for tomorrow's live stream. It's a bit of a shit show, really, but yeah. Katrina Mendoza gets recalled back to the stand, and the CPS investigator gets recalled back to the stand, as well as a couple of other unusual, let's put it that way, witnesses in their defence. So stay tuned. Thanks for watching. This is Jodie at the Defence Rests, and until then, I bid you adieu. Let's go the outro again, shall we?